Okay, that's good. Is it Faith Lynn? Yeah, how you doing? Good. Okay, so we're almost there, and I've just got the smart board going because today we're going to be doing a little something with this that's different too, because I'll be able to teach there and then go there as well. Okay, nice. So let's just see how we're doing, and so we'll do notes in the center. If we can bring in the space station, I don't know, and the PC's working okay. Oh, do I need to do something? Yeah, let me get that. Let's just get fully connected, everybody, and then oh, it's over here. So export. Hold on, not export. It's just a second. I know I used to do this. Export mobile. Hold on. You must. Okay. Let's just see. Right. Screen share. Right. And then, isn't it? Or one? Let's see. We'll get it. What? Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Export. Right. Screen share. And then wired. Then one. Is it? See if you get it on one or two. Let's see. Should come up. Yep. Oh, that's interesting. It's blinking. Okay. One or two? Is it? Okay. Export. Screen share. Try wire. Yeah. Okay. So, well, that's down. We'll have to live with that for now. We'll get. Okay. As long as we're up on Toria, and are we connected on Toria? Okay. So, and we can start, and I'll let Maureen take care of the connection and whatever we can get up on the wall. Great. But I'll close the doors and let me just check to see what's happening online. Could somebody online just jump on their microphone and say hello to make sure I know? Let's see. It was working well this morning. So let's see. On Toria. Yeah. They can go, or even, hi, Chanel, Santa, can you just say hello on your microphone for us?
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so can't hear. All right, well then put in the live chat. Chanel, can you just say, yes, I can hear you, Lon, in the live chat, and then we can begin.
Yes, I can hear you.
Just be in the live chat. That they can hear, and that means the recording is good. Okay, so great. Okay, so we've got an audio connection. Good, it's working from here. Maureen will take care. The rest, that's good. We'll get the smart board going. And so let me try and remember who I'm looking at right now. Humanities Destiny students. It's a bit of a crazy sometimes here. Okay, good. So welcome everybody to Humanities Destiny. And we are just getting everything technically set up, but we can begin. We've got our audio connection, and for the online students, they can hear me, and for the students watching the recording as well, they will see this shot and they will hear me. But most importantly is this group right here. Excellent. And for all of you joining online, the recordings, you will see us, and you will also see students sitting behind them on the couches, so you know who your classmates are, more or less. Today, we are going to cover what is called history's lessons. But before I do that, I want to follow more or less the format that we will follow for our classes. And first, I'll bring in a stool because I'll come and sit here and tell you about this. I don't need my notebook, but I like to join you like this. Okay, it reminds me of when I used to play a lot of hockey, and before the game, we would talk, and the coach would sit, and I'd be tying up my skates and making sure my shin pads were properly fit here and everything was ready. I used to love that. Made sure my skates were sharp. Then we would go out on the really smoothly, zambonied. No, I'm not talking hockey. I'm here in humanity's destiny, right? Okay. So, come on in and please grab a seat either just behind the students on the couches or on the couches. What I want to do today is really drill down on this idea of what we can learn from history when we start to think about the future. But before I do that, there will always be in every class a review section where we review what we covered the previous week, and also if there are any changes in terms of how the class is being delivered, because we're kind of reinventing things in this classroom sometimes, and so there are some changes. I just want to address the participation mark, for example. There's been a slight change with that, not for you, not for the in-person students, but for the online students. I want to make sure they understand. And there may be questions that you have, and so we can cover that in the review part. And then I'm going to give a little lecture on history's lessons, and probably I'm going to do the lecture today from the smartboard over there. You will see what I'm putting on the board up on the video wall as well. You can watch that, and the students online will see me larger at the board on a camera over there, so it will all work. Um, by the way, could you just raise a hand if any of you happen to see part of or some of the recording of any of the classes so far? Just raise a hand so I know that I can refer to the recordings and you know. Great. Okay. Good. So there's a lot of students in this class who are just watching the recordings only. And so it's important that the recordings are done properly. I think we have about 47 of 56 students registered in this class. So there's a lot who aren't here, but they're watching the recordings. So I can address anything that's technically maybe not working with the recordings, but from what you've seen so far, okay? Yeah? Excellent. All right, so let's just review a little bit where we were last week with thinking about the future, and also some of the reading I asked you to do with Paul Sappho's article in the Harvard Business Review. I want to check in and see if any of you were able to familiarize yourself with it. But is there anything anybody would like to ask at this point before I do a little reviewing? Anything on your minds? Jazeel, yeah? Take a mic. Go, and oh, here, turn it on. Yeah,
It's
good.
about the online class situation.
Yes,
Yeah, I would like to inquire more about it because I probably be attending more online than offline due
sure.
to my current schedule.
Good. Glad you asked. Okay. um, week to week, you have the choice of how you attend this class. If you decide that next week, for example, you can't be here in person and you can only join online synchronously, like some students are, Shanil and Santol, I think it is, great, you can do that. If you don't want to do that and you don't have time and you want to work at your own pace, then you can watch the recording. And you can also do the participation little discussion post that I'm going to explain in a moment how that would work, okay? But essentially, Jazeel, we're building a super flexible multimedia classroom to give everybody in the world an idea of what can be done in this new post-pandemic world of education. So flexibility is really important. So yes, if you're online next week, not a problem. But here's what you need to know in terms of your participation mark. okay, because that's important. Every week, every student receives a participation mark of 1.5%. It's out of 3. And this is how it's done. I posted this on DC Connect as well. There's an announcement, but I'll just repeat, okay? If you come in person, at the end of the class, you need to go to the discussion board in the folder for that class on DC Connect, which I've opened now, and post a question based on today's class. That's it. So at the end of today's class, at least before next week's class, in order to confirm that you were here and in order to be beginning to process some of the content, you need to go to the discussion board for today, class 3. You would see class 3 folder on DC Connect on the content page. You go to the discussion board, you just put your question in. You don't email it to me. That was just for the first class because I was getting set up. But for this, for the rest, you would email it, you would send to the discussion board that question. Okay? If you do that, you get 3 out of 3. You're good. Today is class 3. In class 1, you all sent me, emailed me your questions. Everyone's essentially getting 3 out of 3, those who emailed me the question. Last week, I forgot to remind you to do that. So everybody's getting 3 out of 3 last week for participation. But now I'm on top of things. I'm getting things going. So the way it will work going forwards is in-person students between the class that we did today and next week, you just have to put that question there with your name underneath, and then I tick you off, 3 out of 3. If you're joining online synchronously, like Chanel, is it, or Chanel? Correct me if I'm wrong, just jump on your microphone, we might hear you, but Chanel, as long as
Chanel.
you hear this, and Santol, we can't hear you, but that's fine. Here's what you need to know. You too will have to be going to the discussion board and doing the same as the in-person students are doing, but, and make sure you understand this, you will only get 2 out of 3 if you do that. If you want 3 out of 3, then you have to do what the asynchronous students are doing. And I'm going to explain now, okay? So there are 3 ways you can join the class week to week. In person, online synchronously, online asynchronously. For the online synchronous group, if you want the full marks, you need to do what the online asynchronous group is doing. Making sense? So the next question would be, well, what are the online asynchronous students doing to get 3 out of 3? Well, it's all posted now for you. For you and watching just the recordings, or if you happen to just watch a recording one week and didn't come in person or didn't come online, you too have to put a question on the discussion board, the same discussion board, but you also have to explain in 175 to 200 words the reason for why you're asking that question. So in the end, the students joining asynchronously, watching the recordings, are doing more work. And that's as it should be. If you want easy marks, you got to get on the bus. You got to get on your bike. You got to get in your car. And you got to say, oh, being in the global classroom in person actually is important. And this human interaction is important. And if I do that, I get full marks. But I have a battle on my hands, which is the pandemic, which is other things, and that is, and it's all good in the end, a lot of students no longer want to be in a classroom. They expect to be online. Or they think a class like this is of low priority, and so they can take the class while they're on the bus. I encourage that. You could take this class while you're on a bus. Not a problem. It's super flexible. But the reason that I stress the in-person part is not just because I like people. It's because there's an issue here with humanity's destiny, by the way, if you haven't noticed, and that is we are among the first humans ever in the history of all human society that has become so dependent on our tools and our machines that they now essentially are dictating how we spend our mental time. And some of us are losing the ability to interact with other humans. This should be of great concern to us humans. I'm not saying to close your laptops, to put your phones away. This is what's being done in classrooms today all over the world. Professors, teachers, and others are struggling to deal with the extent of technology in the classroom now. It's very real, and it's not about laptops, it's also about AI. I know how possible it is for all of you now. People watching recordings, please listen. For you to do nothing in this course, but just send your notes to Copilot or to OpenAI and get it to write everything for you. And I may not even notice. What I'm trying to tell you about being in person is if you care about your future and the human future on planet Earth, you need to think very, very hard about your relationship with technology. And you need to know how to use it so it doesn't use you. I need to stop because I don't want to bring you down. My job is to lift you up. But we do live in a time when you can go online and see some awful things. You could look at those awful things all day if you wanted. This is new for humans. We have never lived in a time where we can just open up a screen, have our phone, and we just look at all day if we wanted, people killing people, people having sex with each other, people shouting at each other, people railing about this and railing about that and deciding, wow, they're going to go kill some people because that's what this video says, and they get all radicalized. I'm trying to help you to think about your relationship with technology in this class too. And history's lessons, by the way, does teach us something today that you're going to find inspiring, but also quite unsettling about the human future. And so that's why I'm saying to all of you who don't want to be here in person, I know you have other priorities, but you have to start thinking about the human future more seriously before your technology ends up being your whole life. That's depressing. I mean, that that makes me not want to get out of bed in the morning if ever I had a struggle with that, which is people who, from the time they go to bed to the time they get up, it's all online, all online. They do not know how to interact with humans anymore. And when they do, they get so stressed out, they don't even know what to do. So for those who are watching online, you will have a little more work to do with your participation mark, okay? So that's my long way of talking about the participation mark breakdown. Does everybody understand? Do you have any questions around how this is going to all go down this semester with participation marks? You're good? Yes. And you can ask me anything, even the hardest questions, and you don't have to like me. You just have to be thinking, okay? So please go ahead and like karaoke so they can hear you, okay?
Sorry, my question was just about the discussion post. It still shows up as like we can't like type anything.
What's that?
The discussion post on my computer still shows up as we can't type anything, like it's not available.
Okay, this has been coming up. Is it so? Do you see, for example, are you in the class 3 folder for today?
Yeah, I went in the weeks and I went in the
Okay.
discussion post.
Discussion. So does it say class 3 discussion board?
It just says you don't have any discussion topics available.
Can I just take a peek at what you're looking at? Because this is where we see technology gets all screwy because I was up. No, that's not it. Okay. Go to the um, go to the content page. I want to make sure everybody knows. I'm assuming you've got this, but you may not. Go to the content page and you will see class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, 5. Go to class 3. What? Hold on, let me do a quick check and see on my Connect because I set it all up. It could be a teachable moment, which is tech is thinking on its own. Last night, I did everything, and then overnight, tech decided, yeah, Lon Appleby, he shouldn't have been entering things into here last night so late for his students. And my computer may have decided that I somehow betrayed it and did something it didn't like. I entered it to it, and it's been thinking on its own and erased everything. That's the future we got to be careful about. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do for now. I'm going to go over to DC Connect. You're going to see a little of my back end. I mean, computer-wise. Okay. Now, there's global leader. Let's get this actual size. So let's go over to, and we're seeing, and I'll make this a little larger so everyone can see. Let's go over to Humanities Destiny because I have 4 classes, okay? So there are my 4 classes. Global Leader, Short History of the World in 2 sections. Here's Humanities Destiny. So this you should see on your news page. Does this all look familiar to every? Thank you. Okay, good. So here's what you do. You go to content, class 3 discussion board. Is that not coming up? This is interesting. Okay, and then this is what you would see. There you go. And then you go down here and it says, please post here. I did that. Oh man, it is visible. If it goes, it will say hidden. So I've made it visible. Yeah, let me go to this one. You see this technology. Yeah, okay, watch. Class 3, I made these visible and it keeps hiding them. This is a glitch. I know, I did that last night. I went I have to go up here and I have make visible to users. I did that last night with all 3 of them and it keeps defaulting to hidden. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Smart student just I don't need to save Faithlin because it does it. Watch what happens, okay? I will make all the discussion boards visible, okay? Which is, yeah, so that's just to say class 1, make visible. But it says hidden up here. Exactly. There we go. Okay, so this is what I did last night. I did all of these. I unhid them, okay? Now, Faithlin is saying save, but there is no save here. So watch what happens when I refresh. Oh, good. Okay. Okay, well, let's be good humans. And I'm going to have human student teach human professor, okay? So what should I do? come and show, because I thought I did everything and I mastered the tech. Okay, so we've got a problem, but we'll fix it. Okay. So for those of you watching online, you're seeing this play out, and this is good. Okay. Yes. I don't want to hide it, so I unhid it. Right. Isn't that the right thing to do? To make visible? What's the one that oversees it? I. But I did make the one overseeing it visible. I did click. Yeah, that's the thing. Okay. Second rule, well, first, you're going to learn today about history's lessons that the force of human invention and tool making is so great that it's unstoppable. We humans are going to go on creating these amazing tools. Second rule, I haven't started the lecture yet. I'm just still in review, is don't let the tech drag you down when tech messes up, okay? So right now, I'm not going to let this tech drag me. I still don't know why it was doing what it did, but I'll figure it out. The question was, what's your name? Victoria. Okay, Victoria. Is it Vicky too, or Victoria? Victoria. Okay. Whatever you prefer. You did not see the discussion board. Do you see it now? Okay. Is the problem solved, at least for you? Yeah. That's good. That's the way it should be. That's absolutely the way it should be. Now, in class 1, you all receive full marks because you emailed me your question. You're all going to get 3 out of 3 when I update that. Last week, I forgot to remind you all, and there was no discussion board. You're all getting 3 out of 3. Everybody. This week is when it really starts in earnest. The system is going to work, okay? So you have to go to the discussion board between now and next week and enter one question based on today's content with your name underneath, and you get your 3 out of 3. That's it, okay? For the in-person students. Any other questions? You're all good? Clarity is so important when we come, but I see question here, and I want to make sure. So, okay, so you don't have to worry. You weren't registered, so I'll just mark you as 3 out of 3. You're good. Okay. Just a second. I think Faith Lynn and then Jazeel, or yeah. Hold on, Victoria. Can you give it to Faith Lynn? Yeah, and then we'll come to Jazeel.
I have a question. Is this the only like homework we have?
Until the assignments start. There's 2 assignments coming, but this is generally, if you want the honest answer, a nice, clear, honest answer from your professor, the workload is light generally in this class. And the reason is I put most of my preparation into planning the class itself. I have 206 students this semester. I don't have time to be dealing with a lot of marking. So it's fairly light. But the final assignment, the 4th one, Faith Lynn, that's a big one. That's at the end of the semester. That one is where you're gonna feel some pressure. Okay.
I have another question.
Sure.
How can you like tell if someone's like in person, asynchronous?
How could? Good question.
Is it like, are you just like basing off the honor system?
Nope, I couldn't. Well, listen, in this day and age, Faith Lynn, the way AI works, I can never stop cheating 100%. I can't. I mean, it's. Now, in terms of taking the participation marks and recording them properly, what I do is for the in-person students, I go to the question and I see your name underneath and I enter that in the spreadsheet. I can also see you on the recording in the class. So that's good. I can tell You can't cheat if you say you're in person and you weren't. For the online students, you know, if they put their name there and it could be somebody else. I can't stop any cheating completely, but generally, if somebody is taking this class and they actually put their name underneath and say they are the author of that question and that reason, and it's on a discussion board, the chances are it really is that person because they have access to DC Connect, and you can only have that if you are a registered student at Durham College. So, you know, but when it comes to writing, and when I look at what you're writing in, let's say the students watching the recording, you do your reason for your question, and you've used AI to write the whole thing. I have a pretty good nose now of what is written by a machine and what's written by a person. I've been developing that over the last couple of years with AI, but still people get through, you know. There are, I have to say, a lot of students in this class that have trouble with English. And I say to those students, please remember that on your first assignment, if I see problems with writing, I'm going to help you and get you a tutor. But if I see or sense that you are using AI and you're using Grammarly to do all your writing, and I'm going to contact you and we're going to have a discussion. And I'm going to try and help you as a student to improve your English and go through the critical thinking of learning a new language properly instead of kind of farming out your learning of the language to a machine. This is what some international students are doing, and I'm trying to help them, is they use the machine to speak English for them. Yes. So I will help those students get the proper help. But using a machine to do your writing, you're only just putting yourself at a disservice in your future because you've lost the ability to think properly. Yes.
With like Grammarly, it's like in your Word document, basically. So like if you have like a word spelled wrong, it like detects it and then it like automatically changes it. So like, there's no way like in avoiding that. But
That's proofreading, but there's a line between doing that and having it check your sentences. And this is where it gets murky. You enter a few notes. For example, this gets more difficult and murky for the professor. Assignment number 1 is due in Humanities Destiny. 425, 450 words on a critical idea explored in the class. Student enters this into search or into Grammarly or wherever. Please provide me with 425 to 450 words written in good English, sort of informal, chatty, on a critical idea about the human future. And 10 seconds later, the student gets back 425 beautifully words and sends that in. That's cheating. Now, will I catch it? I'm getting better at it because I'm having a good sense now of what's sounding like AI and what's sounding like the student. So I'm getting better at catching this.
I mean, technically, you can catch it because, like, majority of like the writing would not be ours, so we'd have to like reference like where we got our information from, right?
Yes.
So you will be able to catch it if we didn't reference our information.
Yes, but I don't always have time to check your references the way I used to because I have so many students. So I'm generally making a very quick judgment call now when I read students' work within the first 3 or 4 sentences. Is this sounding like AI? And then I put a note under that student, and then I talk to the student. Sometimes I make a mistake, and the student says, I wrote it. But it's a huge challenge right now. Nobody in your generation, your teachers in your secondary schools, elementary schools face this kind of problem, which is you can get so much done by machines now cheating for you. So let me make sure I answer your question, because I think there's a good question here. Because you use Grammarly, and a lot of you do, and I know that. But I want to make sure you use it properly and you don't abuse it. So have I answered this, or am I confusing you in terms of how I'm answering this question?
I'd like to believe you answered it.
Are you sure? Okay.
Sure.
Okay, please, because let's spend a moment on this. This is a bit more time. This is really critical to how I'm going to evaluate you this semester and also your discussion post. So let's make sure everybody understands, okay? And what's your name again? Mikausia. Thanks, Mikausia. Okay, Faith Lynn, you want to say something? Jazeel, are you okay? You're answered? Okay. Before we go to Faith Lynn, does anybody, you good? Okay. Yeah, you good? Uh, is it Curtis? Colin. Well, I had a C in there. Yeah. Faith Lynn, please.
There's a like section in the settings of Grammarly that allows you to turn off the AI like functions and just have like the autocorrect and
I think the final thing I would say at this point, Faith Lynn, is something that I've said in my other classes about AI. And hopefully you will all listen, for those of you now, particularly the students, international students here who have trouble with written English and spoken, because I'm here to help. Do you really want to be that human being who is always trying to use machines to help you succeed? Do you really want to be that human being who says, I can't handle this. I have 2 jobs here. I'm working in a gas station. I'm working in a bowling alley. I've got all this stuff, pressure from home, and here I have a professor telling me to work a little harder. He doesn't understand my situation. And I would fully sympathize with that international student, because it is a fact, everybody, that in today's educational system in Canada, all academic institutions now depend on the higher tuition that these international students pay for their time at, whether it's University of Toronto, York University, UBC, or Durham College. We need their money. It's a fact. It's a problem with our education system in Canada. So when I speak directly to the international students now who have trouble with English, I respect your struggle. I know you're working hard. I know that you're trying to find ways to take shortcuts and get a high mark in this class. But in the end, do you really want to be that person who's always making excuses for the fact that you were unprepared to do the work? What I would say to any of you, any international students who feel that they can't meet these demands, please email me tomorrow and tell me, I'm one of those students that I know I cannot do the writing in this class. I have trouble, and I'm using AI all the time. Could you help me get a tutor who could teach me more and better English grammar to help me? Because I know I shouldn't be using these machines all the time. Please email me and I will help you. But please don't cheat and make excuses because you're working too hard or you're paying too much money. It just doesn't cut it with me. Yes. Yes. What's that? Yes. Let me get this, because it's really, this is important stuff for your grades and your learning and your minds, how your minds develop. Yes. What's your name again? Hillel. Yeah, go ahead.
The reason why you're noticing a pattern in AI and how it writes is because a lot of the text that they use for testing and like learning was made in South Africa or by South African writers.
Yes.
They use English differently, like we do, like how the Americans speak different English than we do, or the Britain does. which is why you're noticing a pattern. That's it.
But why would the South African English make it different?
Because they spell things differently, their grammar is slightly different, and the way that they
Oh, but that's okay. Here's the problem I get now. On essays, final assignment worth 30%. A student will hand in to me, this happens every semester regularly, more than I like, a beautifully written assignment. It might have some odd words and syntax in it, but the sentences are well done. It's clear, but there are no specific ideas in it about what we covered in the class. It's a kind of generic explanation of the subject as opposed to something specific with examples from the class. And so I look at this and I go, this is really well done and it's written well and everything. But did this student ever come to this class? And so it's not about the way it's written, Hillel, it's about the ideas in it too that are really important. You need to be referencing what we do in the class. You can't just enter into, for an algorithm to say, give me my final assignment for Lon Appleby's Humanities Destiny class, and algorithm, go search for everything online about Lon Appleby and Humanities Destiny and make sure it's got lots of things he said in it. And then 10 seconds later, there it is, boom, send it off. And I will look at it and go, but where is this? Was this student even in this class? Maybe I said that 10 years ago when I was at a conference somewhere. You're referencing something I said at a conference from a website somewhere? I mean, it's just, this should not sound like a rant. I feel like it might. Is it making sense? Yeah? Am I getting through? Just a sec, Faithlin. Please raise a hand if you're an international student, because I want to make sure I did not put a nose or two out of joint with, okay. Did I in any way disrespect you in what I said? Do you feel this? Do you feel that I'm in your corner trying to help you through a very complicated, weird time in education? But I'm in your corner to help you, okay? All right, good. That's all. Faith Lynn, finally. You didn't have a question? Okay. You're thinking. That's even better. I like thinking. Okay, we got to get to the main part of today's class. And I want to make sure online we have a few students there. Is there anything? My glasses are up. I'll look at it over here. Chanel, Santol, Bella, is there anything you'd like to add in the live chat? Anything you're confused by, please put in the live chat. Otherwise, I'm going to move on. And let's bring this in onto the center panel, and I'll do that, okay? It's number one, bring the notes in, or is it being kind of petulant? It's being petulant. Okay, this tech is not my friend today. And so let's come back to, what was it? Could you bring back? Okay, this tech does not want me to do what I told it I wanted to do. I'm angry at my tech. So I'm going to just move on. That's okay. The space station looks great up there, and we'll let it continue. So I'm going to deliver this lecture a little bit differently. I won't do it with the smartboard as much because we can't get it up here, but I'm going to do it like this, right here. Yes. We can do that, but they can't see it. Okay, online. Try going preset 2, and let's see what happens. See what happens, okay? So hold on. If I go over here, and you guys look, you can kind of, but you see the words reversed, but then on YouTube, it comes up as the right way. It's just because of the video conferencing. Yeah, there's YouTube. Nice. Okay. So you see how difficult tech is? It's just not doing So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna deliver it mostly here, but I'll go over there from time to time, okay? What would we do without human judgment? Faithlin? So you're witnessing me today dealing with some what I would call obnoxious technology. It's not acting properly. My judgment in the end is what matters. That's my long way of saying history's lessons has a lot to tell us about the human being on planet Earth. And what I want to do in the next 15 or 20 minutes, it may go a little longer, we may not have time for teams, we'll see. I want to provide you with a few critical lessons that history gives us that could help us understand the future. Yes? What's that? Sure. If you have to, yeah, come back, and please don't go out and vape or smoke or say hello to your girlfriend or boyfriend or family or whatever. Just come back to class, okay? And bring your surfboard with you so we can stay on the wave. Macalissa. M. No, here, we got to do this. Could you do preset 2? We got to spell it, okay? Because you see, you guys are all the critical. Would you please spell your name so I can put this down properly? M C C C A L S. Oh, there's 2 S's and 2 C's. That's Macalcia. Yeah. But there's no H here, like, no. So, see how we rate? And then just for the hell of it. Okay. Okay, let's bring it back. Macalcia. Finally, we've got it up there. I can always refer. Macalcia, you have something to say. You don't have to. It was just a general way for me to start getting you to think about big human stuff. Don't worry. The question was something along the lines of, isn't human judgment important? Okay, something like that. But you don't have to answer it yet, but go ahead anyways. We'll just get you the microphone. Give Macalcia, please, a microphone so she can be heard.
Okay, so my personal opinion is yes and no, right? Because for some instances, human judgment can be important because, like, okay, for instance, oh, if you're stealing and someone looks at you and judges you, you're gonna feel some type of way about it, and then you're gonna stop stealing, right?
Yes.
But but like then the same way can be bad because you're like you're consciously depending on someone's opinion or someone's approval, and that can hold you back, and it cannot be good for, like, for example, like for your self-esteem, because like you're consciously like waiting on someone to, like, on someone's approval.
But you're not quite understanding what I meant by judgment, and I'll explain. Isn't it interesting that you've interpreted it as you being judged by somebody else? I mean it in a broader context, Macalcia. I mean that when humans collectively, meaning each and every one of us, are the ones who have to make up the decision in the end based on what a computer provides them, it's very important that the humans are the ones who are judging in the end, not the machines. That's what I'm saying. I'm speaking to a much broader sense of human judgment, not that you're being judged. Okay? I mean it in terms of our capacity, our cognitive capacity as humans to make important judgments. We can do something that machines can't. And that's what I want you to understand. Okay? What's that? The final say. Exactly. Nice. Absolutely. Final say. Make sense? Okay, yeah,
Does.
good. But but I'm glad that you brought it up because you were thinking of being judged and it's not. So let me come back to the lecture. Let me start the lecture. What is it that history can teach us about the future? What is it that has happened on planet Earth during the time in which humans have been the dominant force that are lessons that can help us to understand how to make decisions about the future? What kinds of events have taken place? What kinds of people have been part of the human story? Most importantly, what kinds of forces are there that will always be there? And so if we need to plan for the future or think about the future, we need to think about these lessons first. That's what I want to address. Okay? Hello? You have a question? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah? Okay. Just hold your questions for a second. I want to spend in the next 20 minutes or so, I'll try as best I can to identify 3 or 4 critical forces in the human story on planet Earth. Now, when I talk about history's lessons, I'm taking a step back now and I'm looking at history in a way that maybe you haven't before. So it's important that we establish some ground rules. I'm going to be thinking more like an astronaut right now, who is looking back on planet Earth, which is what we do today in the 21st century and this third millennium, the 2000s, is we have a much wider view of the story on this planet. So history now is much larger. We ask questions like, what's been happening down there on planet Earth? And what have the humans been doing? And what is this thing called human civilization? And why did humans create civilization? And what is civilization? And why do they fight so many wars? Who has been fighting the wars? We ask this very big planet-wide question because we now have this perspective, the planetary view. So I'm going to be giving you some lessons that go back thousands of years, not hundreds of years. I'm going to be giving you lessons from the human story on planet Earth, not from the Canadian story or the 20th century or World War I or the Roman Empire or the great Indian civilization or what Islam, beautiful religion, Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, all the religions have brought. It's going to be bigger than that. It's the human story on planet Earth. We ask this question increasingly today because we can. We have science today that helps us with this. Modern archaeology, anthropology, paleontology. These are the sciences that are digging things up from the planet and helping us to understand what's been on this planet. We have sociologists and we have psychologists and we have many scientists, geoscientists, and others helping us to understand what's been happening in human society. Who are these humans? So I'm going to make a kind of supposition before I give you some lessons. And that is, I'm going to assume for the moment, in the next half an hour, that you are a human first. You are a human first. You are a human first. And you are a human first, and so am I. In other words, you are not from your culture first. You are not from your country first. You are not from your religion first. You are a human first. Try to just absorb that. This is not easy because when you look at the world today, and when we look at history and human societies, we see an immense amount of conflict and destruction and cruelty and savagery in the name of cultures, in the name of religions, in the name of gender. But I'm just asking you for this half an hour or so to think of yourself as a human first. That's it. Once you do that, you can then begin to see there's an interesting story that's been happening on planet Earth with these humans. And I can speak about this story and speak about these lessons because I teach history of the world. I teach that in this classroom. I have been teaching this for many years, and it's a great passion of mine. I teach the human story. It's called Short History of the World. Well, here we begin with, I'm going to say for the moment, 3 critical lessons that we can really begin to drill down on. And for me to be able to explain this first lesson, I need to tell you where we come from, we humans, and what modern science is telling us about how we became human. Here's a very basic fact that we know increasingly from scientists who study this. We were not just put here as we are. We have grown and developed out of all the other creatures that have been on this planet. Now, that leads me to the first and maybe the most important lesson. I'm going to write this down, okay, and make sure that it's very clear, and then I'm going to proceed to the second and the third, okay? So when we talk about history's lessons, we are talking ultimately about the human story on planet Earth. Okay? Now, we have to understand that there are what are called enduring forces in our story. And I want to identify 3. The first one, let me see if anybody guesses it. Now, when I talk about a force, I mean it's as if you were sitting on a riverbank. Maybe I'll make it specific. You're sitting near Niagara River. Raise a hand if you've been to Niagara Falls. Okay, great. You know, there's a river that feeds the falls. The river, well, the falls goes into the river, and the river then feeds into Lake Ontario. And then there's also going the other way into the United States as you go back. But on the Niagara River, down from the falls heading to Lake Ontario, there's a lovely path that you can walk. Okay. Winston Churchill called it one of his favorite paths in the world. That's before it was ever paved. He loved driving down this, looking at the river. Imagine you're sitting by the Niagara River right now, and it's nice and calm. But underneath, there's these currents going. You don't want to go in the water because those currents could take you very quickly. It's dangerous. That's what an enduring force is. It's the current underneath. It's what you can't see, but it's there, and it's moving everything along. It's always been there, and it's always going to be, as long as there is this thing called nature. Nature is something I could talk a lot about, but I won't. I will only say we're living at a time in history, everybody, when we humans are changing nature fundamentally. That's huge. That's something else. There is a force, a current that is moving. It's been there. It's in the natural world. It has led to the creation of the stars, the planets, to life on this planet, to the humans who rose on this planet, to the human brain that has come from all of this. What might that force be? Because if we can nail this now, you will know that there's something you cannot argue with. This force is there and it's going to be there for a long time. And so we have to account for it in our future. What might it be? Keep going. Who said the magic word? Hillel. It's okay, I heard you. Keep it to yourself. I'm going to put it. He just said very quietly, evolution. That's force number one. What evolution means, according to science, is that everything changes on planet Earth. Everything has been changing. Everything will be changing. You are changing, and you don't even know it. But just remember, wasn't that long ago you were a fetus? You look a lot different than you as a fetus did. And you as an old person look different than you are now. So accept change. It's happening. It will happen. Now, the lesson of history in that is that there is this thing called evolution. We're changing. Humans have accelerated the change on this planet. We are beginning to speed up natural change. That's a critical part of this lesson. Have you ever wondered what climate change is? Climate change is normal. The climate has been changing on this planet many, many times. As a matter of fact, we humans, 50,000 years ago, when we were anatomically human already and we started to migrate out of Africa and populate the rest of the world, yes, we all come from Africa originally and we walked out of there. At that time, there was an ice age on planet Earth. And we humans, as we began to move out of Africa, following animals, killing them, creating our shelters, we learned how to adapt to the ice and adjust to this hostile world that almost made us extinct. And eventually, the ice melted and civilizations began. Climate change is normal. What's not normal is the rate at which it's changing now. That's different. That's a result of humans. Humans are accelerating the process of evolution on planet Earth. And that's going to keep happening as long as we stay human. That's scary, but it's also kind of awesome. Is this making sense? Do you see the relevance to what this lesson may mean in terms of our future on this planet? Change is coming. Are you ready for it? What's it going to be? We don't know yet, but it's coming. Next week, we're going to do a whole class called The Next Big Thing. We're going to try and understand, where's the next big change coming? Is it coming in technology? Is it coming in maybe faith? Is it coming in gender? Is it coming in mental health? Is it coming in conflict? We don't know, but something's around the corner, and probably it's going to be technology. Okay, that's number one, evolution. Now, number two is quite interesting. And I'm going to write it here for now to help you understand power. Power. We know from the history of human society that humans have been gaining greater and greater power for themselves over the natural world. In fact, we have learned from the history of warfare, the history of construction, societies, from any kind of exploration that we do, from our modern 21st kind of obsession with empowerment and human rights, that each and every one of us wants more power. Now, how do we control that? Well, yes, Faith Lynn, control, yes. We might say that the idea of the spirit world, which grew into religions, has helped us to regulate ourselves so that we act well and good to each other. We don't know yet if humans are naturally good or not. That's scary. But what we do know is that humans, with their inquisitiveness and their restless brains, their large brains, our brains are not as big as some of the other primates that we've grown out of, but we have a dense brain. We have more neurons, more nerve cells packed into a smaller space than chimpanzees do, or orangutans, or gorillas, or other primates. So we have the most number of neurons packed into the small space, and they all are so well connected through synapses and the way they communicate. So we have a very incredibly complex thing called the human brain. The human brain is restless. It always wants more. It always wants to understand. It always wants to go further. So, do we naturally want something good or not? I can only say that human history tells us that if there's a problem, humans are going to want to figure it out. And we do that because we want the control. We want the power. This is very important to keep in mind. The third rule, evolution, power, and finally something very simple, and then we'll stop, is we're in a slightly new world today. You, your children, your grandchildren, and others who are going to come after you have to deal with a very difficult ethical problem around our evolution and our desire for greater power. What do you think that problem might be? And it's a force. It's a force that's growing. It's a very new force, but we're going to have to deal with it increasingly. And we need to write it down on the board and understand it because it's going to be part of our future, whether we like it or not. Yes. Technology is in power. Your name, it's Gigi, of course. Gigi, we say often that more technology gives us more power. So but if it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because the more tech we have, the more power we have, the more problems we have. That's called the paradox of progress. Don't think that more tech solves everything. It just brings new problems, often greater problems. It's called the paradox of progress. Does that make sense? The paradox of progress? Faith Lynn? Yes. What's that? How new? Which? The third one? Good question. Since the Industrial Revolution, 250 years. The Industrial Revolution really started to get going around 1750 or so. So since the Industrial Revolution is when we had to start. Oh, try it, Faith Lynn. You want to try? It does begin with S. It does begin with S. And it's making the planet deflated. And it's causing us a lot of problems. No, the sun can handle itself. It's 5 billion years old. It's the battery of everything that happens for heat and light on this planet. And The sun is far, 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 far more powerful than we humans are ever going to be. The sun is 5 billion years old. Do you know the sun is halfway through its life? We are basically halfway through on planet Earth. It will live for 10 billion years, and then it kind of begins to implode, and it will end. The sun is a star, and it will last for 10 billion years, but I'm going off on a tangent. What does it begin with? An S.
It's scarcity.
What's that?
Scarcity.
Scarcity. You're really warm. It does begin with S, and it does end with Y. Good. And it has a B in it. No. And I want to tell you, by the way, some good news. We humans do not have a natural desire to subjugate others. That history does not bear that out. Slavery was a cultural thing that allowed countries to prosper, but slavery is not what humans like to do naturally. And we ended slavery, at least official institutionalized slavery. Yes. The good news is we humans generally do not like to enslave others. And when slavery has been there, we've tried to end it. It's taken time. Every society has practiced slavery in human history. They all have, but they gradually came around to the idea that slavery is not good for humans. So subjugation is definitely not history's lesson. That's the good news. Sustainability. You never suck, Gigi, never. Okay? So let me put this on. 3, sustainability. Now, sustainability. This is so nice to be able to go to the board and feel like I'm back in a normal classroom teaching instead of tech. I just want to teach and interact. Why is sustainability a force now that we have to reckon with and really deal with and will become part of our future? Why do we consider it a lesson of history? Something like that. Let me give you an example, Faithlyn, a little story that can help you understand. Jazeel is right. We're on a kind of a ticking time clock because the resources that we're using to maintain this world are limited. Not only that, the garbage that we create from the use of these resources is causing problems for the natural world, for the environment. But let me give you a tiny example, a little anecdote, and then we'll stop. Once upon a time, before I was teaching, I was a television producer, a journalist and director, and produced television series, and you can see that all online. In my early 20s, I used to be a freelance producer for the old national news program, CBC. You know Adrian Arsenault? Any of you watch the national news on CBC? It's generally pretty good journalism. This is where journalists work, journalists who care. So I am a journalist by training, and I was producing documentaries for CBC. I had the chance to go produce a documentary on what was called the Love Canal on the Niagara River. Back in the 1970s, it was discovered that there was a community of people living on the American side of the Niagara River who were becoming very sick. Cancers. They didn't know why exactly people were getting sick, but gradually this grew into a real public concern, and it was discovered that the chemicals that were buried underneath their community were very toxic, and they were put into barrels by a chemical company. It wasn't DuPont. I forget the name of the chemical company. But the chemicals had started to, over many years after they had been put there back in the 1940s as waste, the toxins in them had started to leak out into the soil underneath the ground and even started to leak towards the Niagara River and down into the Niagara River. And the people were becoming very sick from this. It's called the Love Canal crisis. That whole community was called the Love Canal. There was an area around there that was called the Love Canal, but it was connected to the soil. And the Niagara River today and Lake Ontario, two of our most important natural sources, are absolutely unswimmable and largely undrinkable because they are so contaminated. And that's in part because chemicals have been leaking from many, many years of unaware garbage disposal. And that has caused problems for people. That's a small example of what's happening in so many parts of the world today. We humans have created this thing called global technological civilization that gives us so many conveniences, so much power in our lives, and has even led to medical science that's allowed us to live longer, create prosthetic limbs, and solve all sorts of medical problems. Has given us fast food, fast fashion, fast everything. But what about the garbage? What about the waste? And if that waste accumulates, Faith Lynn, to a point where it starts to contaminate the environment, we have some problems. Even worse, we now realize 200 years or so after the Industrial Revolution, when we began to understand how to take oil out of the earth, it's a natural thing. All the vegetation that has been on this planet, even from the dinosaurs and whatever, that vegetation gradually, when it died, trees died, it kind of created layers in the planet. And some of it is gooey and some of it isn't. And that became our oil. Yeah, it's natural vegetation that's died from life on this planet. And we figured out how to take that oil, put it into a machine called an internal combustion engine, which is what we invented 202 years ago. And we burn that. And that is how we drive our cars, how we fly our planes, how we drive our buses if they're not electric. But we learned very recently, in the last 50 to 60 years, that all of the burning of that oil creates too much carbon dioxide, and that causes climate change. So, if you're thinking about the future, there are 3 lessons that you really have to think about today. And that is, everything changes. How are you going to make the change better? Maybe that should be your question for yourself. Recognizing and accepting that change is normal. It's okay. But how do I direct that change so it's better? That's the question you want to ask. Then, if we're gaining more power, and we've created weapons of mass destruction, for example, that can destroy all life on this planet, if we're capable of blowing things up to the point where we kill everything, that's called omnicide. How do I use these powerful things in my life that will enhance life, not destroy life? That's important. And then finally, how am I going to be part of a future that can sustain itself, that will not break down, will not collapse, but will actually continue to grow and thrive, prosper? Really important questions. I've talked for 30 minutes, not 20, and I'm thinking, given the fact that most of you seem to be listening and interested, and I don't want to talk too much because, I'll lose you guys. I'm going to stop for a second and see if we can have a little bit of a discussion about what I just introduced to you, these 3 forces, and then we're going to end the class. And your job will be to put the question into the discussion board, right? And for those of you watching the recordings, you have your criteria as well, the question and the reason. Let me stop for a moment and let's see if there's anything you'd like to add right now. History's lessons. It's very, very introductory. There are many, many more things we can learn, but I'm trying to give you some very simple lessons. Evolution, power, and sustainability. In the cosmos, social media or the internet. Some Santol, is that a question about a force? Let's look at this for a second. What can we learn from social media or the internet that might have a force in there that can tell us about our future? I always want you to be able to, when you look at history, I'm trying, and this is a really important thing I'm going to tell you right now, I'm trying to help you to think historically. Let me write this down for a moment, okay? Think historically. What does that mean? And then we will start to conclude. Think historically. If you can do that, you really have a future. You have to know the past. You have to know the past to understand now and what's coming. That's a cliche. Most of you have heard that before, probably, but maybe not in such a nice, condensed way. You must know the past to understand the present and the future. And I've just helped you a little bit. But let's think for a moment. A student puts this in the live chat. I have no idea exactly where the student is coming from, but I think I understand. Social media or the internet. Gigi? Yeah, go ahead. We want to make sure you're heard, okay? Because it's a good that it was put there.
I want to answer this question because I had originally said technology is one of the forces.
Yes.
And I remember you had said earlier in this class about how, people can spend all day or, a large portion of their life only online. And only on their phone. And I just want to talk about me for a second.
Sure.
I was homeschooled for most of my life. And I had an opportunity to go to high school for one semester because I went and then COVID happened and I was online for the rest of the year.
Yes.
And I remember how hard that was for me. And I also lived on a farm. And it's not like I could go to my neighbor's door and play or whatever. You know what I
Sure.
mean? And I was really longing for that in-person connection. And but now you see that people want to be online or that's their choices to be online rather than that in-person connection. So I think that I say technology and social media is a force because it is. People are spending their whole lives, through their phone and through online, and they're losing that in-person connection. And I think that's a big problem.
Yes. But my point I wanted you to understand definitely is our creation of technologies gives us greater power and options to do things. That's what I mean. So you're not wrong about technology being forced. I'm giving a broader interpretation.
Sure.
Of tech. That's all. But please continue, because what you're saying is important about human interaction and other things. What would you like us to? Let me come back for a second. I'm asking you all to learn how to think historically. What I'm saying to you is that you need to know the past. And that everything that you do in the course of your day, you should try and look at it when you can through a historical lens. In other words, history is about asking why. History is about asking how. It's about how was something put together? Why did it come to be the way it is? So, Gigi, when you see social media or the internet and what you've just said, take a step back for a moment and ask yourself, what is the sort of historical force here that I need to understand in this question? What could we learn here from the development of social media or the internet and humanity's adoption of these tools, what does that tell us about the human being that's really, really important? That's a force. And if we can identify that force, we then can begin to make better forecasts for the future. So, what's the force in our love of social media and the internet? What's going on there? What do we want? We humans want.
Out of that,
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that, and that's what I'm hoping everybody can help me figure out, and we can figure that out together, because I want to know when did it become, so important to have X amount of followers or X amount of likes or to have your feed look a certain way? You know what I mean? Like, when did that become important? Sorry.
Good.
Just
Yeah,
one
good
more
question.
thing.
Good question.
One more thing.
Yes.
I remember when I was a kid and I did live in the suburbs for a little bit. I was probably about 10. And I had, a couple of friends in the neighborhood, and I'd go and knock on doors. We brought our bikes or whatever. I didn't have a phone growing up. I haven't had a phone for most of my life. I've had a phone when I was 17, and that's about
Wow.
how the extent of it.
She didn't have a phone till she was 17. That's amazing. Keep
It has
going.
its pros and cons.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing to look at. But I remember when my friends got phones, something huge really changed. And nobody would answer the door anymore. And we're not riding our bikes, and we're not going to the park. And now we're using Snapchat and this, and how many friends you have. And it snowballed so quickly. And it
Absolutely.
was
Snowballs.
sad.
Everything snowballs these days. It's fast. Everything happens fast. This is true.
And I just want to know how we can get that back and teach our new generation that
Huh.
the way to live is not through your phone.
Wow. Well, let's spend a few minutes trying to understand how this relates to humanity's destiny. And remember, the definition of humanity is not just humankind, it's humaneness, it's the human bond. It's what makes us human. Matalasia. Yes.
I agree with Gigi because, like, okay, when I was younger, right, I grew up in Guyana, right, and we didn't like. I remember like going out onto the streets and like we would like play with our neighbors, like we would play in the streets and whatnot. But then eventually it got to the point where everyone's like communicating on the phones and everyone's like worrying about like how many followers they have. Like when did it become like a norm to like think about how many followers you have? And then I like with the upcoming generation, like Generation X, I think. Is it X?
Elon Musk,
Gen Alpha.
who owns it, but we won't get into here. Yep. X, J, whatever, Twitter.
And
Yep.
so like yeah, I'm like Gen Alpha, I'm genuinely concerned for them because like they're gonna grow up without knowing like like knowing to go on the streets and ride your bike with your neighbor or like proper human interaction because like they're being placed in front of screens since they're like younger and I'm like and I think like parents are doing this because of like the society we live in because like when you go out like there's always like something that's happening and like parents are kind of like trying to shelter their kids from that
Right.
but like in doing that I think that they're also putting them at a disadvantage because they're growing up without ever experiencing like a childhood. Yeah, because like
Yeah.
during the summer you hear the ice cream truck, you want to go outside and like you're running for the ice cream truck, but now you're getting it delivered to your door. Like it's not making any sense.
It's great that you're bringing these things up, and I'm going to challenge both of you and others, and we can return to this next week with the next big thing is that there are a lot of people who would disagree with you and say that the technology has been such a positive thing in their lives. Well, maybe we will. I mean, it depends on the level of engagement in the class, and I'm watching. What I like is when I see you making an attempt, all of you, to be here and not be online and here. But that you and I don't mind the computer's open if you're taking notes or whatever. But if really you're disappearing and you're bored, you don't need to be here. You can be somewhere else. It's okay. But for those of you who are listening and I know you are and you're trying, I think it's terrific because there are things that we can learn from each other, and we can only do that in person. Now, I just want to make sure that everyone's had a chance to speak, and then we're going to conclude. Uh, So, of course, Gigi, good comments. Faith Lynn, Macalcia, that's great. Did I see a hand or two here? Hillel and Jazeel. Let's get a microphone over to these two gentlemen, and then we're going to conclude, okay? Hello, please go ahead. Yep. I'll make sure.
About the whole Gen Alpha being like addicted to their devices thing, that's due to two, maybe three reasons.
Speak right into it because you have a gentle, but it's a good voice. Just speak in. Yeah.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So the main thing about Gen Alpha and them being addicted to screens is a combination of 2 to 3 different things. The first one was that they usually have parents like millennials they grew up with very strict parents themselves, and then those parents don't want to project that onto their own kids, right? So they do the complete opposite sometimes, right? That's what I've noticed in my family, at least,
Sure.
right? And then another main thing is that compared to us, because Gen Z grew up with a lot of technology too, right? YouTube was made in 2005. I was born in
Yeah.
2005, right? The main thing is that back then content was being made for the sake of passion rather than the sake of money.
Yeah.
If you wanted to make money off of entertainment, you'd make a TV show,
Yeah.
or a documentary, or journalism, or whatever, right? Now it's based on like making these kids shows on YouTube and trying to make the most money possible.
It's called monetizing. Monetizing. When we monetize, beware.
There's like an entire like document that people have made about the most optimal way to exploit a kid's mind and how to make sure you get the most amount of watch time on their videos as possible.
I wouldn't be surprised
They
if such a document
abuse
exists.
sounds, color theories, different like art styles, common tropes and characters, everything you can think of.
We have to be careful. Good point, Hillel. Yeah, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, if you could find that document or that source and bring it to the class, and we'll evaluate its credibility to make sure it's a good source, and then we will discuss it. Let's, Jazeel, okay, fine. I just want to make sure you're out of here, as we always say, 2:45, okay?
uh, Even though it's the rise of technology has led to the current situation that it is, it's mostly, how should I say, people. It's due to the increased in accessibility in communication and the way people interact through their devices most of the time.
Yes.
That has led to them interacting less face to face. I believe that's the reason people, we look at people like introverts and like that.
Yes.
Humans are a social creature and they need to talk. They will crave. People will crave. If even if you claim you're introvert, people will crave some interaction. But due to rise in technology, this we can easily text, talk, or voicemail easily with a
Yes.
person. And even during gaming consoles, iPads, phones, everything, computer, it's easy to talk. But we talk with strangers, we talk with randoms.
Yes.
And how should I say? It's unedited, and at the same time, wrong things can go anyway.
Well, history does teach us that we are social creatures. That's for sure. And that we engage in a very powerful thing called persistent collective learning. We like to learn together, just like this. Gives us power. Anyways, I'm going to stop. There's a lot here that I'd like you to give some thought to. You have a question that you will have to post on the discussion board for class 3. The first assignment, I will talk about the assignment instructions next week when we do next big thing, and we really get into technology and what's coming in that area. But I thank you, Gigi, for sharing what you did and for having the courage, and Faith Lynn and Calcia, and getting that correct, and all of you in the circle. And I look forward to seeing you all next week, and I'll be here if you need me, okay? So thanks, everybody. Okay, great, so we'll leave that here. I'll save the notes.